It's that time for full disclosure with the Better Government Association. I'm Greg Bishop with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And we're joined by David Greising after having last week off. David, hopefully you enjoyed your time off. Welcome back. And we're back into the daily grind of, the doldrums of summer, quite frankly. But there's plenty to talk about. So thanks for taking time with us as always.
Sure. Yeah, there's always something to talk about.
In Illinois, yeah, there's no doubt. No question about it. I have family that ask, why do you still live in Illinois? I'm like, I work in the news business in the capital city. I mean, there's plenty going on. But David, let's get right into it because, there's a trial going on up in Chicago after the ComEd 4 trial in anticipation of the trial against former House Speaker Michael Madigan. His former chief of staff and House clerk is on trial starting this week.
Yes, absolutely. This is the case that sort of has gotten lost in the shuffle between the big ComEd 4 trial, which saw 4 guilty verdicts for people associated with Mike Madigan, and the coming next year Mike Madigan trial itself. Tim Mapes, let's not forget, was one of the most powerful figures in Springfield as Madigan's hench person and chief of staff. He was the doorkeeper. He decided who got to meet with Madigan and who didn't, et cetera. And what the federal government is showing here in what appears to be a pretty narrow charge that he lied to a grand jury, the filings so far have indicated that they plan to expand the case to really focus in on Tim Mapes' relationship with Michael McLean, the fixer for Mike Madigan, who was found guilty in the ComEd 4 trial. And a filing about a month ago included numerous tapes in which Mapes is talking to McLean and seemed to be making the case that those two were working hand in glove to advance Mike Madigan's cause and really protect Mike Madigan's power above everything else. And so there are strong implications here for the upcoming Mike Madigan trial itself.
Yeah, it's, of course, really the charges that he lied to investigators. Any of this going to be directly related, at least in the charges of bribery or any of the things that came out of the ComEd 4 and possibly with the Madigan trial, or is it just that narrow bit of lying to investigators?
Well, the government doesn't need to prove anything about bribery or those related types of actions, but what they do need to prove is that he lied when he downplayed his connection with McLean, and that he did so to a grand jury, which of course is a federal offense. And what they seem to be wanting to do is to be testing the waters on various charges about the allegation of a conspiracy to defraud the public through the actions of Madigan and his related people. So the question isn't the legal question is, did he or did he not lie? The real, the weightier question is, what is it that he may have lied about? Specifically, what did he say he did not remember in his dealings, especially with Michael McLean?
David Greising with us, Better Government Association. This is full disclosure. And of course, on this issue, finally, any chance we're going to see some ethics reforms stem out of all we've seen transpire so far from the ComEd 4 trial, what we expect to see with the Tim Mapes trial, and what we expect to see with the Madigan trial?
Well, we at the Better Government Association have been disappointed that there haven't been more fulsome ethics reforms. There have been some minor improvements passed, for example, some minor strengthening of the Office of the Legislative Inspector General, et cetera. But there's a lot more to be done to address lobbying and the access that people have to affect government. And so far, there hasn't been nearly enough done. I don't think the Mapes trial itself will be a big spur for that, but certainly once Mike Madigan goes on trial and all of that story is laid out before the public, we would hope that there would be political pressure following that to do something more concrete than what has been done so far.
Well, let's move on to something else dealing with good government, and that is having inspectors general do investigations when they find wrongdoing within state agencies and other government bodies. Tell us about the executive inspector general and PPP fraud that they found from some government employees.
Right. Well, there is I mean, we know that the executive inspector general is looking into fraud. We don't have any charges just yet, and this is part of a national review of abuses within the Paycheck Protection Program system that was passed as part of the federal COVID release package. In June, the Inspector General for the Small Business Administration estimated the agency paid out more than $200 billion in potentially fraudulent aid during the pandemic. That's about 17% of the money that was dispersed through the Paycheck Protection Program. And so now in Illinois, the Inspector General has said that there appears that there was some fraud on the part of state employees, and that an investigation is underway.
You know, it's incredible because when you look at the total amount of federal tax dollars that just the state of Illinois, both public and private, got during COVID-19, it's in excess of $160 billion. Again, that's the PPP loans, those the unemployment, that's the billions that went to state governments, local governments, school districts, universities, all up and down the line. And to imagine 17% of that could be fraud, it's pretty incredible. David Greising
it's worth noting, Greg, that the state is a little bit behind, what has happened, say, for example, in Cook County, where a number of people have lost their jobs over fraud allegations, et cetera. It's good to see the state kind of get on board and start going after these concerns.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the governor's interview with New York Magazine and also the state flag. But before the break, let's just talk about weed, cannabis, marijuana, a vice, and it looks like people are still going out in droves and picking it up.
Absolutely. Illinois has become the third largest cannabis sales state in the country. And July had its highest sales month this year of $140 million. For the time being, Illinois benefits from the fact that Wisconsin is still not allowing cannabis sales. And Illinois, of course, being a big national transportation hub, gets a lot of tourism in here where people are buying a lot of pot. So the weed sales are proving to be quite a substantial business. There still are very serious concerns about the lack of access to this industry for people in minority communities. When the governor and the state legislature initially passed the weed law a couple of years ago, there was a lot of talk about making this business available to people from disadvantaged communities, and it really hasn't happened. There was an effort in the legislature in this spring to help in the weed growing business, get minority investors involved in the weed growing business, but at very small levels compared to some of the industrial sized grow operations that are going on. So there's still a lot of work to be done there. But meanwhile, the stuff is selling. It's a big business and it's bringing in a lot of tax revenue to the state.
A lot of tax revenue, and Illinois also being seen as having the highest costs for consumers in the cannabis marketplace, really driven by the high taxes and comparing to other states that have legalized cannabis for recreational use. There's also much fewer choice and actual brands as compared to other states. So it's interesting to see the big picture, not just from Illinois, but when you step back and see of all the states that have legal cannabis, how it compares. David Greising, full disclosure, stay tuned. We'll come back and talk about the governor's New York Magazine interview and what a new state flag could possibly look like. So that's on the way here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Back with full disclosure, getting some sunshine out there on government with the Better Government Association's David Greising joining us as he does each and every Wednesday at around this time. David, the final couple of things I want to tackle include Governor J.B. Pritzker's interview with New York Magazine. What does this tell us? And are we seeing the governor position himself for higher office, or what's really behind these kind of high-profile spreads in national publications?
Well, it does seem evident that the governor at some point would like to run for president. He has never said so. But that said, making oneself available to the New York Magazine for a profile that clearly was going to lay out that question of what is his role in national politics is the sort of thing that people who might have their eye on the White House would do. Let's not forget, though, we focus on him. He's not the only Democratic governor that would like to be president one day. And these days, Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer, Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, both of whom are in swing states, get a lot of attention, as does California's Gavin Newsom. And so what makes Pritzker different is the amount of money that he has. And there's ongoing talk in Democratic circles about the fact that if for some reason Joe Biden would step down, Governor Pritzker would be sort of ready-made to step in and could bankroll his own election campaign. That's a scenario that becomes increasingly less likely as time passes. But nevertheless, it's interesting. It's been floated before, and it was floated again in this new article by New York Magazine.
So obviously, the 2024 election is a bit away, but a lot could change between now and then. As we know, politics. It seems that there are surprises around every corner, from the Trump probes and investigations and criminal charges, and then you've got House Republicans in D.C. stacking up all kinds of evidence about allegations of pay to play with the Biden family. So who knows exactly what's going to happen in the months ahead. So we'll be watching that closely, as I'm sure the Better Government Association will as well. The governor's been busy, though, David. He's been signing all kinds of legislation. Last Friday, he signed 95 different bills, vetoed one of them at the request of the sponsor, dealt with the E-Verify program. So that's an interesting story there. But another bill he signed could lead to a new state flag. What's possible here?
Well, first of all, it's just amazing to watch bill after bill after bill being signed. And it's a reminder of that last flurry of laws that are passed as the lights are about to go out in Springfield each spring. It's unfortunate that a lot of times we have no idea what's happening under the Capitol dome. But that said, the state flag, there will be a commission now to explore a possible new state flag, and it's required to report back by next year sometime. This would be the third state flag in the state's 200-plus year history. So an interesting development worth watching. There will be a lot of push, no doubt, to reflect the broad diversity of the state of Illinois and possibly replace the current flag, which has an American eagle and not much else.
Yeah. Do you think they'll do some kind of kindergarten art contest or something like that?
I would imagine a kindergarten art contest will be in our future. Let's hope they make some improvements on what a kindergartner does before they turn it into a state flag.
And I know there's always questions about, if it didn't say Illinois on it, people wouldn't know it was the Illinois state flag.
Exactly.
So we'll see what they ultimately do with that. David Greising, Better Government Association, greatly appreciate it. If people need to get a hold of you and all the work that you guys do with BGA, but also with Illinois Answers, tell us about it.
Yes, our policy website is bettergov.org, and our news website is illinoisanswers.org, where we cover investigative and solutions-focused reporting, all of it focused on government in Illinois.
So be sure to stay up to date with the Better Government Association and Illinois Answers. It's all we got time for. David, we'll see you next week, all right?
Thanks, Greg. Bye-bye.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, and that's all we got for today. We'll be back at it tomorrow, live and local, from 6 to 9 on WMAY.